Wendy, I'm going to start with you. Okay, the Financial Services Board is known as the regulator for the financial services industry. What does that mean, and what do you aim to actually achieve through that?
The Financial Services Board regulates all non-banking financial institutions. That means insurance companies, pension funds, as well as financial service providers, collective investment schemes, as well as the markets, JSE. Our aim is to promote sound financial institutions in a sound financial investment environment, thereby monitoring and ensuring that financial institutions are prudently safe and they have the capital, etc., if they're taking clients' investments. And in relation to financial service providers, that when they conduct business with clients, that they ensure that that is done within the scope of certain market conduct regulations that set out what exactly they must do and mustn't do when dealing with clients.
Okay, so this is obviously where the term authorized financial services providers come from. I mean, just broadly speaking, what does it mean to be an authorized financial services provider?
Anybody in South Africa that renders advice to clients relating to certain investment products, as well as render intermediary services, so they perform a function between the client and the product supplier issuing the product, must be licensed in terms of the FAIS Act. So you obtain a license, and then thereafter you need to comply to specific requirements, which is termed the fit and proper requirements, as well as a code of conduct, which sets out exactly how you need to act with your clients.
Okay, so it's sort of setting the lay of the land in terms of regulatory point of view, making sure that the do's and don'ts perhaps get put out there. Noluntu, obviously from your side, the Ombud for financial services providers, this is really the holding bay of where complaints resolutions take place. Perhaps you can expand on the role that you play within the financial services industry.
We come in at a point where consumers lodge complaints. Ideally, in terms of the Act, which is the FAIS Act, the consumer must first direct their complaint to the person against whom they wish to complain. But that rarely happens in ordinary life. Consumers will start to the FAIS Ombud's office. So routinely, we will just refer the complaint to the FSP, that is the person against whom the complaint is being lodged.
Okay, so once you've taken on those complaints, I mean, what is the process that then unfolds from there?
All right, in terms of the Act, we're supposed to resolve complaints expeditiously, economically, and informally. So what we do is we will try and resolve each complaint that comes in informally by mediating and conciliating. If it doesn't work, then we have to go to the formal mode of resolving the complaint. That could mean either a recommendation or a determination.
Okay. Obviously, I mean, there's two regulatory bodies. One is the Financial Services Board, and the one really come in from a complaints perspective. Where does one draw the line in terms of understanding where the FSB role fits in and where perhaps FAIS takes over? Wendy, I don't know if you want to have a chat about that.
I think it's important to understand that as regulators, we license FSPs. We supervise them in terms of ensuring that they're complying. So we have certain on-site visits, we go out to them, they need to submit reports to us, and we take enforcement action against them. So we can take the license of the FSP away, or we can debar a specific person if they did something wrong. In relation to the doing something wrong, we can also take them to the enforcement committee and issue a penalty on them. But if a client has a complaint, that resolved with the Ombud. So the Ombud will assist the client in an alternative complaints resolution mechanism to ensure that the client's rights are protected and there's somewhere the client can go. So the FSB has sort of the oversight, ensuring that everybody does everything wrong, but sometimes people do things wrong. And I think it's when you are aggrieved about how you were treated as a customer that you will go to the Ombud, and the Ombud will assist you in resolving that specific process.
Okay, so from an FSB perspective, it's really a question of, am I compliant or not? If it's not, then perhaps that's something that falls in the ambit of what it is that you'll then pick up. Like you said, debarring and perhaps taking away of licenses is the natural course of action there. However, somebody could be very compliant, but somewhere in the sort of services that they've provided, either from an advice perspective or intermediary, it's gone wrong. They're going to come to the office of the Ombud. Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
Shaun.
Ronald, you're sitting very quietly at this stage. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got the sort of two legal eagles sitting on either side of you. But from a professional body point of view, there's the regulator, and we depend on them heavily from that point of view. But as a professional body, there's something that needs to be picked up. What does the Financial Planning Institute actually do there?
Well, I think it's important, first and foremost, to realize that the Financial Planning Institute is a professional body. As Wendy has quite rightly said, we do not do the registration, we do not license the people. But after somebody has been licensed, that's not a guarantee that that person is going to provide you with the best possible advice. And in a way, I would like to say, we're there to prevent you from going to Noluntu. We're there to prevent you from something going wrong and you as a client having to go to the FAIS Ombudsman to complain. And the way that we do that is by ensuring that financial planners out there adhere to certain professional standards. So as a professional body, we pride ourselves in saying that if you work with somebody that is a member of the FPI, he will adhere to certain higher standards than those required by the FAIS legislation and by the FSB. And therefore your chances of ending up with the FAIS Ombudsman will therefore be less. Okay,
but that's what you should do, but often that's not the case. What then happens? I mean, what is the recourse that they have within the Financial Planning Institute?
Well, within the Financial Planning Institute, we have a code of ethics, which we apply very strictly. And from our side, we will investigate any claims as well against any of our members. And that will, from our side, result in that person being removed as a member from the Financial Planning Institute. So there's no financial benefit in it for you, but it's a kind of a protection measure, knowing that from our side, if you work with somebody that is a member of the professional body, you can be pretty certain that that person up to that date has complied with all our requirements when it comes to ethics and when it comes to providing services to the client out there.
Okay. Well, I mean, from what we gather so far, certainly from a comprehensive point of view, it seems to be there. The question really is it becoming effective? Noluntu, we chatted a little bit before the show. Obviously, number of complaints increasing, and we really had a debate of whether this is good or a bad thing.
Well, we've looked at it from the point of view of it means more people are becoming aware of the services we provide, and hence the increase in complaints. Other people could say, oh, well, it means there's less and less compliance in the industry. We prefer to look at it positively and simply say, well, it's probably because more people are becoming aware of our service.
Wendy, would you concur with something like that?
I agree with her. I think there's more awareness in terms of consumers being aware that there is a compliance mechanism. In terms of compliance, FSPs are sometimes non-compliant, and I think we've done a lot in the past 6 years since FAIS has been introduced to actually start ingraining a culture of compliance and people understanding what is their compliance role. And of course, if you start disclosing correctly and if you tell your client everything, they will understand better and be in a better position to know that you might have done, you might have given them the wrong advice, or if they are getting in touch with somebody else that give them the right advice. It creates that whole awareness, which leads to more compliance, I assume. In terms of compliance, of course, there has been failures in the industry, but you will always have those. It is a question of there's a lot of people doing the right thing, doing it correctly, and as long as that's in place, and we do a lot of monitoring on FSPs and how they comply. And I must say, in the past 3 years since we've started with the monitoring process intensely, you can see that there's better compliance. People put better structures in place, and they can become more aware of what they have to do and not to ensure that they are treating their customers fairly.
Ronald, I mean, you want to say something?
I agree definitely with it, because one of the things is it is wonderful for a financial service provider or a financial planner to disclose everything regarding fees and regarding, say, the conflicts that exist. But if the client himself is not aware of what his rights are, he has got nothing to compare it against. And I think, therefore, a show like this has a very important role to play, because this is where the consumer starts realizing what his rights are, and now he can compare what his rights are against what he is being told by his financial planner. And therefore I believe that will also lead to an increase in the complaints with the FAIS Ombudsman because of the fact that the consumer out there is becoming more aware of what is happening and what he's allowed to claim.
Well, let's say I'm a consumer for a section. I don't know whether this person's compliant, whether they're an authorised financial service provider, I don't know if they're a member of the FPI. Where do I actually start in terms of getting some type of process going for whoever that party might be?
Well, the first issue is that the financial planner himself is under requirement by the FAIS Act to provide you with a number of pieces of information. And the previous FAIS Ombudsman was very strict on that he specifically said that for him, the disclosure moment, the moment that you meet the client or the consumer, was very important. And therefore, it is important that your financial planner provides you with his license, with what he is entitled to sell, to provide you with a document about the conflicts that might exist in his business where he is operating. But I would not leave it there. The FSB's got a wonderful website in which you can actually type in the name, anything of the financial planner, and find out whether that person is registered. You can get all the contact details of that financial services provider, and you can also see whether that person has currently has been debarred or not. So I would say that consumers need to take some responsibility as well, and not just focus on the information that they get. And then, of course, to make sure that that person is part of the professional body, he can go to the FPI website and just type in the name there as well and see whether that person is a member of the Financial Planning Institute or not.
Okay. I've gone onto the website, he's authorised, he's a member of the Financial Planning Institute. Noluntu, do I still come to you?
Well, I think it's important for people to realise that, first of all, the FAIS Act was never put into place to compensate consumers when things go wrong. The FAIS Act was put into place to prevent things from going wrong. Wendy just mentioned that just now. But we are human. You know, things will go wrong. All right. There are things that will always be there that people have to be aware of.
Okay. I think really the next thing is, and this is something that we spoke about, and I think you highlighted a little bit, Ronald, is that of education. You know, education of both the planner and the consumer. They got to be equally important, right?
That is true. From our side, we have always been known as the institute through whom financial planners can get the highest qualification with regards to financial planning. But unfortunately, focus on the consumer was not so much in the FPI in the past, but I think we are changing that as well. But I believe from the FAIS Ombudsman's office, there's a number of things going out, and I know from the FSB, there's a very strong focus currently as well on the consumer
on education
and educating them.